decides right there and then that he's going to do a massive poop, like during the middle of a dance. And then we're like
so excited.
Behind every creative person or small business is a great story waiting to be told.
And we are here to tell them.
I'm Shane, aspiring author and man behind I-Endeavour.
I'm Hannah, semi-abstract artist and woman behind Sarah's Studio. And this is the
I-Endeavour podcast.
Welcome to episode 2 of the I-Endeavour podcast. Today we have some fellow podcasters on Flo and Laura from Strictly on the Sofa.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So why don't you tell us a bit about yourselves then?
So I'm Flo and this is Laura, and we have been best friends since school, since we were about 10. We basically have just go way back. And I don't know what else you want to know. We started a podcast recently.
What do you do? Obviously, your podcast is not your day job, considering that Strictly it only runs for so many weeks. And yeah, so what do you do apart from the podcast?
And so I'm a civil servant.
I'm a journalist, so I've bits and bobs here and there.
For those that haven't guessed, obviously I am related to Flo, if you haven't guessed by the names. And I remember Laura from when we were younger, and Mary and Tim were always like, isn't Laura so quiet and shy? And I was like, no.
I'm like Toy Story, like when the parents aren't looking, wild. When they come into the room, instant stillness.
So we obviously know them, so it's a bit different to some of the other podcasts we've done. I obviously love the podcast. Big fans. Me and Donica, I think the first series come out when Donica was just born. And we used to listen to it, and he used to get so excited. He'd be like, oh, when the intro music comes on, which I love, he'd be like,
got some pumping intro music. So yeah, if you've got a small baby in need of entertainment, that's totally, yeah.
Reason as ever to listen,
It really is. It does.
He used
Really
to
is
like,
really
yeah,
get
really
excited
like
for.
it. Yeah. So how did the podcast come about then?
Well, we talk about Strictly enough. So we were just sort of like, I don't know, we had a podcast before this, didn't we, Flat White, which was a bit more, we didn't have our niche yet, I don't think, so it was a bit more just about everything and anything, and we enjoyed doing the process of that, but it wasn't really getting anywhere outside of our friendship group, and I don't know, we needed a bit more of a structure, do you think?
Yeah.
I really loved Flat White, actually.
Oh, thank you.
We really love doing it.
Bring it back.
Yeah, no, we love doing it, but I think we were like really conscious there was so many other podcasts out there of people chatting a little bit about pop culture and a bit about their lives, and so then we were like, why don't we do another podcast? Like, we really want to carry on doing it, we want to do something similar, but why don't we find a bit more of a structured topic, a bit more of a niche, and so we floated a couple of things, didn't we? But then the new season of Strictly started up, and we were like, right, well, that's it. Like, we're talking about it anyway. Why not just record it?
Yeah.
Our group chat couldn't handle it, so all of a sudden it was like, we need to take this to an audio.
A new level.
Exactly.
It's good as well when you have something that you're really interested in, and you can.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to talk about it and kind of share, kind of your insights into what's going on.
Yeah, and we've watched it since we were kids. Like, I remember us ringing voting, and you'd get Bruce calling back like, your vote has been registered or whatever it was.
I really remember series 3 when Flo was really into Zoe Ball, and I was really into Darren Goff, and coming to blows over this. It's been a thing for a long time.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And how have you found the reception and everything that you've got from it? Because obviously, you've been asked to do radio, and you've kind of, you've got a good following around it. So how have you found all of that?
It's been really rewarding. I think the first series we were probably sort of finding our feet, and we had we had a few very keen fans, which was great. We've just, well, not just finished, but last winter we finished series 3. And so we've managed to really grow it, and like you say, being given opportunities to go on the radio and stuff. So it's been really great. I think the thing is, people out there are so passionate about Strictly as well, and it is like being able to talk to other people about something that you're really, really interested in and that you really love. And I think there's also just sort of part of this kind of yearly thing now. I mean, you know, the nights start drawing in and it's getting colder and Strictly starts and the podcast starts now, and it's just nice to have that to sort of look forward to. So yeah, it's been really good, I think. A really positive experience.
Sum up.
If you had to sum up the podcast in 5 words, could you?
Sparkly.
Yeah. Over-investing.
Definitely. Positive.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge thing at the moment as well. We all need a bit more positivity. I know it's not on at the moment, but it was when it was dark lockdown days.
Definitely. It improved my mood so much, it was insane. I just couldn't believe how much.
I think we kind of made a bit of a decision to reflect that in the podcast and not go into critically on the dancers, although we do have our moments. But I think most of the podcast is about celebrating the joy of Strictly, and that's what we really want to do. So yeah, definitely positive and definitely not negative.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask, with everything going on in the past year, like, were you concerned at first that maybe Strictly might not go ahead last year? Amazingly, it did, but I know you spoke a bit about it on the podcast, but like, what did you think of the Strictly edition as well? Or like the COVID Strictly edition?
I think it was really great. I don't know, I've been thinking quite a lot about it, especially with there's another dancing show on at the moment, and it's having a few struggles with injuries and things like that, and it made me think that actually what Strictly managed to do last winter was a bigger feat than maybe people, like, I don't know, I think even than I realised, and we realised when we were talking about it and how well they had done to get it on there. And I think they did. I think there was an extra sort of camaraderie there, obviously, because they were all having to stay away from their families and do this in such horrible circumstances. And I think they sort of understood their remit, which was to bring everyone a little bit of joy and happiness. And it was nice to have everyone sat. I don't know, because we've all felt, I don't want to get deep, but we've all been so isolated. So to have everyone sitting, like most people sitting on their sofas at the same time every night to watch something together, I think they did a really good job of bringing everyone together with that. I don't know, I think they understood what they needed to do.
Yeah, because like the couples bubbled, and like even married couples like Jeanette and Aliash like bubbled with their Strictly partner and away from each other. Like that must have been so hard for them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was amazing that they all stuck to it and they didn't have any real incidents. I mean, there was, Harvey got COVID just before, right? But he was okay then for the season.
Yeah, and Katja and Nicola, Katya had it.
Oh yeah, they did. They had to pull out, but
one, you know, as they were both fine. That's they came back for the final and it was amazing. But I think just, you know, even just one couple, I think that's pretty amazing.
Amazing, yeah, impressive.
And do you always have a clear vision and plan of what you're going to talk about in your episode that week, or is it kind of just sit and chat and just see how it goes?
It's a bit of both, yeah. I mean, definitely we want to go off script a bit and be able to talk and you know, and I think part of our personal connection is a big part of the podcast. You know, we've been friends so long, so we want to build on that. But it's good having Strictly to talk about, because it does give you a bit of structure. There is, like, we always need to talk about the couple that's gone. We need to talk about the couple that came top of the leaderboard. You know, we need to talk about the dance off. So there's a few things that we know we're always going to hit. So I wouldn't say we sit there with a kind of list of bullet points, but we'll have the leaderboard in front of us and we'll just work our way through that usually, won't we?
Yeah. We do make notes through, like, well, I don't usually when I first watch it, but I usually watch it a second time on the day we record, and then I make notes, but to be honest, I rarely end up using them, because we just said, yeah, it's exactly just as Flo said, we get enough structure from the leaderboard, I think.
Yeah. Because there was one classic episode as well when Flo was actually here. Do you remember?
Yes.
It's like 2 Strictly seasons ago or 1 Strictly season ago, and you were like, I'm really into it as well, and I like to watch it, but obviously with the small baby you don't always get to do that. And then Flo was obviously watching it preparing for like what would be the podcast afterwards, and Donica decides right there and then that he's going to do a massive poop like during the middle of a dance. And then
We're
we're
just
like,
so
"Oh my
excited.
God, stop the show, pause the show." And then Florence like, "You can't stop halfway through a dance." And like we had to like rewind it, watch it again.
He was very small as well, wasn't he?
All
Yeah.
set up on the projector and everything, I think. Like, we made a big deal out of it. Then,
Yeah.
Donica
We were
goes
so
and
excited, and then I'd say we like paused it so many times during that one episode.
Yeah. Yeah. we did.
Putting that up for the judges to do. You know, that's what they think of the dance. You know.
Exactly.
I remember whose dance it was as well, and I didn't really like her, and I was like, he's clearly trying to send messages.
Yeah, we rolled out the projector and everything, didn't we?
We did,
Made
yeah,
a big
we-
spectacle and everything.
Oh, we were so naive, so naive.
Now, have you actually found recording and stuff this year? Obviously, not being able to meet up and stuff like that. Has it been difficult, or?
It's been fine. I think we know each other well enough to be able to have a good chat online and not need to be in the same room to have sort of chemistry. So I think it's been okay. I mean, more broadly, it would be nice to see people not in my household or my family. So I think that's definitely what I'm missing. But the actual kind of mechanics of getting the podcast done have been fine. Would you say, Laura, or do you think it's better when we're in a room?
I agree with you. I think because we've not always lived in the same city or the same, went to different unis. I think we're quite used to talking on the phone and online. And I think we've had a few dry runs with being in different places because lives and work and things like that. And so I think all in all, I think we're used to it really. And I think that is lucky that we know each other so well, because I think I would find the mechanics of it all quite difficult if I didn't. I think it'd be hard to just setting up microphones, little things like that. I don't know. I'd find it quite stressful if we weren't there's no need to be patient with each other. We've just known each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I feel like people think it's really easy to like just put a podcast out there, and it's not that easy.
It's not. It's
and it takes a
of,
long time.
It's a lot of hard work. It really is. And I think that's partly why our first podcast didn't really take, because we just weren't doing it regularly enough. I think we sort of started off every couple of weeks, then it was once a month, and then it sort of just slipped and we hadn't done one in 6 months. So with Strictly, it's good because it kind of keeps you, it's every week, so you have to keep on top of it, but then you do get a big break for the rest of the year. So it's not like you're constantly having to sort of churn out material. So I think that timeline works quite well. But yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard work. Like watch the show once to enjoy it, watch the show again to, like Laura said, take notes, take it in, really like study the details. And those first shows in those series are hard work, really, really hard work.
They're always about 2 hours.
They're so long, So yeah, watch the show, record the podcast, edit the podcast, which takes easily double the amount of time that it takes to record the thing, easily. Then, so I tend to do more of that sort of background stuff. Then Laura does all of the social media and all of that kind of content that's out there, and that's a lot of work. We did a competition this year with like a sort of Strictly League, so then there's all the totalling up of those scores. Then you get called into radio interviews. Schedule that in.
I'm gonna get on to that because I was like, the first time you were ever on the radio, I was like, oh my god, what's that radio? Like, I was like really hyped. So I will get on to that. But I just want to quickly ask, over the last couple of years, there's been like a mix up of the judges. What do you think of the current lineup, and is there anyone that you would like to see come into it?
Oh, good question. I honestly would quite like to see Anton on it. Like it sounds controversial because sometimes we have our little criticisms of Anton, like not majorly, as we say, we're a positive podcast, and he is he's part of the furniture now, right?
Yeah, he's a crucial part of the Strictly family. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but I think he worked so well on the judging panel this year when he had to step in for Motzi. But if we're just talking as it stands as well, I think the judging lineup is as close to perfect now as it's been for a while. I don't know. I just think it's they seem to have got a good mix.
Minus Bruno or plus Bruno?
I don't care either way for Bruno, really. I tell you, I didn't really miss him too much this year when he wasn't on it. So I think, yeah, I think he might be better replaced with someone who's a little bit more, new to the table. But someone like Craig has been there for ages as well, and I don't really have a problem with Craig staying. I think he brings quite a good counterpoint to some of the others. Like, he's not afraid to call out the details and everything. So I think I also love Shirley and I also love Motzi. So I think it's a pretty good lineup now for the judges. But I would like to see someone like Anton, or maybe like one of the old pros, like Ian Waite.
Yeah,
he's so good. Yeah.
Do you think Craig's got softer over the years? I always remember him being a lot more 100%.
Harsh. But it's like Simon Cowell on. I mean, I don't watch X Factor, but he definitely got softer over the years as well.
Do you think it's maybe like a change of sort of the temperature of it? Like, people were a lot meaner in the noughties. Like, there's videos of Anne Robinson on The Weakest Link absolutely gunning for people that would not be allowed now.
Yes. You just can't get away with the stuff they said anymore, and rightly so. But yeah, definitely.
I think that's probably true.
Willie's just mellowed. Bit of both.
Yeah. Watch an old film or an old TV program, like, God, I can't believe people used to say stuff like that. What the hell happened?
Yeah, there is.
I know, and in our lifetimes as well. When you see things from the 70s, you're like, oh, it was different back then. But yeah, when you see things from the noughties, you're like, that wasn't that long ago.
And I wasn't a child
then. And I wasn't a child, exactly.
I was watching. Do you know John Tucker Must Die? That film.
Yeah.
I was just randomly flicking through Disney Channel the other day, and I was like, oh, I'll watch that. I've not seen that in years. Oh my God. Some of the stuff they said in that, I was actually shocked. I was like, I watched this like when I was a teenager, and I did not pick up on this. Anyway, sorry, I digress. Who has been your favourite ever contestant and why?
I think my answer. I'm pretending to think it's Danny Mac.
Could have predicted that by Laura's frequent Danny Mac klaxons. We should get one for this podcast.
To bring him to all the podcasts. On one of our radio appearances, I was like, he is the Gene Kelly reincarnated, and they were like, you love him, don't you? And I was like, oh no. I didn't mean to go. Yeah, I just think he's talent plus charisma plus kindness, and also he had Oti. He was performing Oti's choreography. It could not be a better melding of minds. So that was probably. What about you?
So I'm going to go really old school and say Zoe Ball. I thought was great. Also love Ian Waite. Second, maybe I should have an Ian Waite klaxon. I loved Mark Ramprakash and Karen Hardy. I also mentioned them quite a lot on the podcast. I just thought they were really great, and seeing this kind of shy, reserved guy kind of coming out of himself was really great. I loved Alicia Dixon. She was so cool.
I didn't watch that season.
I've got a lot of fond memories of those really early ones that I watched when we were sort of teenagers, I guess. Yeah. But the standard has definitely gotten so great over the years, I think. So it's really tough. It's really, really tough. But yeah.
There's so many now as well.
No.
So,
what would you do?
What would you be doing if you weren't doing what you are doing? So, what would you think your podcast, if you had to take a step back and Strictly got cancelled? God forbid. What would you decide to do and talk about?
I've always wanted to do a Green Wing podcast, and Flo knows this.
Yeah.
Every time after Strictly on the Sofa finishes, I'm like, what about the Green Wing podcast, eh? But then, you know, time and everything, like, you know, as we said, Strictly's in a really nice window of time, isn't it? But yeah, Green Wing for me.
Yeah, I think we're both big fans of telly, obviously, and sitcoms. So I think some kind of sitcom rewatch, from a few years ago now, that would be really fun to do.
That would be cool. You don't see too many of them either.
No.
Kind of podcasts about.
Although there's a
TV.
lot of like 90s noughties sort of podcasts he's cropping up now, but
Yeah, that's true.
We do have a shared love of sitcoms as well. Like every time I've watched one, Flo has always been like, "No, I'm watching that too."
Yeah,
same time, Superstore.
yeah, exactly. Maybe that should be our next one, a Superstore podcast.
I would love that.
Right. I wish we'd done it when we started. The thing is, you start watching something and then later on think like, "Oh, that would be a good podcast," but but then the ship has sailed. So yeah, we need to get on it basically.
I always watch things as they like come out, like Netflix things, and then I try and get you into them. Like if you were as on it as me with like Netflix things, we could have done a podcast about that. But you're like, oh, I'll watch that in a while, and then like a year later, he's like, did you see that? Now that was really good, and then I'm like, yeah, watched it a year ago.
Slow to the party, yeah.
The Queen's Gambit now. I'm like, can we watch the Queen's Gambit? Can we watch the Queen's Gambit? You're like, oh, maybe another time.
No, we were
Oh no, you'll love that. It's really good.
We were watching Designated Survivor. We had to. I didn't want to stop halfway through. We had to finish all of it, and then we could start something new.
Yeah,
So
I told Dad about Queen's Gambit, and he watched it in like a day.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Good. It's quite. You can definitely binge it.
Yeah. Well, we can't anymore.
No.
But
The child takes away our abilities.
when he's 18, we can watch the Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, I'll record it.
What advice would you give to anyone wanting to start a podcast? Or us?
Yeah. Well,
I think be really clear on why you're doing it, what you're doing it for, and what you're doing it about. So yeah, definitely find that niche and that thing you're really passionate about. So that's kind of what can keep you motivated. I think like we said, that first podcast we did was just too broad, and I think we started off with our hearts in it, but then after a while we sort of lost our way a bit. So I think starting off with something really clear and specific to kind of keep you on track. Yeah.
And also I would say do it for yourself a bit. Like first, I think that Strictly on the Sofa, it feels like it worked in many ways because we would have been having those conversations anyway, and took the pressure off for one thing, because we were just sort of like, no one's going to listen to this apart from our 3 other friends that are into Strictly, and that's not happened. So that's a bonus. Everything after that has been a lovely little bonus, but also because it means we enjoy doing it. Like I actually actively look forward to recording it and doing it. And I also think, in link to what Flo said as well, make sure you have that structure in place, like, because I think if Strictly wasn't on every week and it was required for us to just record when we wanted, I would still need that deadline.
Yeah.
we publish on a Tuesday.
Exactly.
Otherwise it just would never get recorded. Not as much as I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So,
No, agree, definitely.
And we touched upon the fact that you'd been, on radio on BBC 5 Live, and like, how did that come about? How did you become the kind of Strictly reps for BBC?
And they were featured on Radio 2, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, we made
BBC
BBC
on Radio 2.
Radio 2 lunchtime news. So, it was back in the great saga of 2019, 2018. When was it? Yeah, 2018. When Katia, one of the pros, was caught kissing her partner, and she was married. There was that whole media storm about it, which was ridiculous. But yeah, so there was kind of, I think that was the first time that someone got in contact with us from 5 Live, I think it was, to say, we're going to be talking about this on our segment tonight. Do you want to come on and chat about it? So that was kind of, but that was really good, but also it was a bit of a phone-in thing as well. So there was members of the public also chatting and everything.
Yeah, because there was an older Flo, I remember her.
And she was brilliant. She was like, let them do what they want. They're grown adults. Leave them alone. She was like 90. She was also, and I was like, yeah, go Florence.
Maybe it's you from the future.
Yeah. So anyway, but then I think after that we sort of got put on. So the BBC have like a list of people to contact for different topics, and we basically come up, when you search their database, we just come up as the Strictly people now. So I think basically having done one, getting put on that list, and then showing up for others, and when people got in contact with us to say, we'll do local stations, it doesn't matter if it's Radio 2 or if it's kind of a little town in the middle of nowhere, their local radio station. If they get in contact with us, we're always really keen, and so I think that just kind of gets us showing up more and more in their database. I don't know if there's anything else. I mean, yeah. We got some good tips. We've got a friend that works in radio, although that's kind of not how we ended up going on there, but we got some tips from him just in terms of ways to reach out to people and kind of ways to approach being on the radio. We kind of figured a lot of it out for ourselves but that's quite helpful. And I think if you do have those contacts, make the most of them. I think everyone likes to think that they're just going to be discovered because they're sort of thing, but in reality it's not really the way the world works. So even if it's just giving you a few pointers, then
Did you find you had a boost in viewings or anything after the radio, or did it not make any difference?
I wouldn't say hugely. More things that have made more of a difference is interviewing people, actually. That I think we tend to get a lot more engagement when we, I love doing that. So hopefully we'll have a bit more of that next season as well. But it's I don't know if the news has had any, well, not being on the news, but on the radio shows.
On 6 o'clock news, it's Flo and Laura.
What it's really good for, I don't think many people will listen to a short 5-minute segment of us on the radio and go, I need to search that podcast right now and find them. But what it's good for is we always then record the little segments that we're on, use them on our social media, and just kind of build that kind of kudos around ourselves. Like, we are actually really good at this and we know what we're talking about, and look, we've been featured on the radio. So for our fans or kind of people coming across us on social media, that really helps, I think, in sort of building the brand. So I don't think we ever saw a kind of straight away spike, but I think over time it's just all helped to build the whole thing. If that makes sense.
Very
I think it's a pretty exciting and rewarding feeling as well when you get reached, like someone reaches out to you being like, will you be on the radio for us?
Experts.
Like, yeah.
I know. Really enjoy it, and they're always like, it's because it tends to be breakfast presenters as well in our experience anyway, and they're just so, I don't know, it's always really good fun. And
Cheery.
Up very early.
We're so different. When for like a breakfast show, we've woken up at 5:30 in the morning to be on these, and Laura's much more. I think I'm just a bit more. I do get nervous about it, but I'm not too. I'm probably too laid back. I'll roll out of bed like 10 minutes before and quickly like pull a jumper on over me. It's still in my pajamas. And Laura will be there, having been awake for like half an hour already, with a cup of tea and like full face of makeup. Like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
But if your brain was as slow as mine when I first rolled out of bed, you'd be the same. Like, I genuinely wouldn't be able to string a sentence together, and I think I just have to get it working.
It's definitely the better approach, because I'm there like, oh my god, what am I talking about again? What is Strictly?
I need a coffee to get me going in the morning. Definitely.
Same.
My regular job, getting up early in the morning, not so much.
Highs and lows.
So what would you say has been a high of the podcast so far, and what has been a low? Have you had any lows?
Your biggest learning curve, I suppose.
Yeah, more of a learning curve.
I mean, this is a small high, but I always get like a little thrill when anyone from Strictly ever gets in touch or engages with our social media at all. It always makes me feel very excited. There was a time when Kelvin Fletcher followed us, which was great.
And that was a big one.
Oh my god, he was my favourite that season, so it's very exciting. And then Otis liked a few things, just little bits like that. It's just nice to see. Again, it makes it feel like a community, doesn't it? But that's probably a much smaller high than to, I don't know, than a general one.
Yeah,
What do you
no,
think?
I think that's really rewarding though, definitely.
You know, to then know it's not a shout out into the void. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Sometimes it's good. Anyway.
I think the other thing is when we've asked people if they want to
Yeah.
come on our show, or even we have a little thing where fans can send in questions for us, so they record themselves and we answer their questions. And I think we started off being like, oh, no one's going to want to do that. Why would they want to, come on our podcast? And then everyone has said yes, haven't they? Everyone we've reached out to. And we've had some people just get in contact with us out of the blue just to say like, oh, I've got a question. Can, like, how about kind of featuring it on your segment? We've had like really nice messages from fans and stuff. So I think that's probably like a really good high, just having that external validation.
Aww.
It's always nice to have some praise.
Yeah.
It is.
Reinforcement. The leaderboard actually. We did a, what was it called? Strictly on the Sofa Super League.
Yes.
We launched that last year, and we thought oh God, I hope more than just our friends enter again. And we got quite a few entrants.
We got like 50 people enter it.
Wow.
Yeah,
and
I know.
So I'm like happy that people wanted to do a little game.
I missed out, so next year I'm going to be on that.
We'll definitely push it more this year now that like knowing that people want to do it. So yeah, definitely.
About the stakes as well. I did terribly. I was out in the second week.
It just shows you just can't predict what's going to happen at all.
Whoever thought Bill Bailey when we first seen the lineup?
Exactly. I put him in as my kind of wild card because I was like, me and Laura can't win this thing. Like, it would be really bad if we set up a competition and then won it. So it would be awful. So I was like, oh, let's make sure I drop in a couple of like probably won't do that well, probably won't get that far. And Bill Bailey was one of those, and then he went and won it. So who saw that?
We should have known because he's so musical. You just need a little bit of rhythm.
Lows. I don't know, really. I think none of it's been bad. I think sometimes it is hard to I think editing it, I quite like editing. I quite like the process of it because it's you don't have to think too much. It's one of those jobs you can just, when your brain sort of almost like switches off and you just do another zone. So I quite enjoy editing, but sometimes when you have got like a really long segment to get through and you've already listened to the conversation once because you've had the conversation to then go through and listen to it all again, and occasionally there's issues with the mics and there's feedback or someone's a lot quieter and you end up, so I think just technical things like that, given that neither of us are really that technical, are we, trying to get our heads around that? But I don't think it's a low. I think it's just been a definitely...
We'll call it a learning curve rather than a low.
Yeah, low's very negative.
Yeah.
No,
we made a mistake with that jingle.
Editing, and Laura makes me do it every single week. And actually, if I have a really busy week at work or I'm away or something, then Laura will do it that week. We'll share it out a bit if there's, if it's particularly challenging. So yeah, it's
confirmed the microphone nonsense.
This is when you find out Florence deliberately goes away when it's a really long episode.
1 week. So I think Laura is a bit more expansive with the topics she'll go down, and I think I'm a bit more. I'm less creative. Shall we say? I'll be as rude to myself. And 1 week I was on holiday, and it was I was in a completely different time zone and everything, so it wasn't even like we could record from far away. And so we got my sister to go on and record with Laura, and they had like my sister, so it was B. She is exactly the same as Laura, will go down any rabbit hole and stay in that rabbit hole for quite a while. And I don't know how much how much audio you had to edit that week, but I did not envy you at all.
You can't tell, only because I obviously know you, but you can't tell that sometimes Flo is like, okay, so back to the leaderboard.
I think that's why we work.
Well, that's the the thing, right? I think you do need that mix of
Yeah, totally.
things. Otherwise, yeah, you end up with either way too much or like not enough, and you don't really kind of get into the interesting bits of the conversation. So,
do you think confidence plays a big role in podcasting? You two are clearly confident, and you're doing well with it. So, do you think that you have to be confident?
Let's hope not.
I think that's probably why we launched a podcast together, really, because I think we've known each other, so I do think it's a big part of it. But I don't know, I always feel confident when Flo's around. Like, I think that, people do with their best friends, don't they? I mean, sure, if I hate her, but just generally, yeah, I think it does play up. Just being able to play off people and stuff like that.
I also think it's really good for confidence building.
That's true.
So if you listen to our first couple of episodes of Flat White, oh my God, I'm there like a little mouse in the corner, like, hello. And so just learning how to kind of hold that conversation and speak confidently. I still don't think like I'm 100% there. But I would say if you are worried about public speaking or about talking to people, one of the most horrible things you can do, but one of the best things you can do is to record yourself and listen back, or film yourself and watch it back, because it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. It really isn't. And so I've definitely learned that from podcasting. Definitely.
The thrill you get after, so about the radio stuff as well, of just being like, oh my God, I have talked expertly about this thing I'm really passionate about, and I didn't make a mess of it, and it was good fun. And genuinely, I'm buzzing every time. It will be 6:30 in the morning. I call Flo for a quick debrief to be like, do you think we did okay? And it's not like I'm all of a sudden tired and want to, I don't know, it's just buzzing for the rest of the day. And if I had an interview to do, there has been the case where I've like had an interview to do in my day job after that, and you just feel like the world is your oyster. So definitely it builds your confidence. It just proves that you can hold a conversation, as you said. It's nice to know.
Yeah.
Actually, I was reading some stats today, and like because of what's been going on, there's been a huge increase in podcasts, because I think people have found it as a good outlet to kind of express how they're feeling and stuff like that. There was the downside, apparently, that because people aren't commuting, people aren't listening to them as much as they were before.
Aww.
But I think it's back on the rise. I think more people are starting to kind of spend the time doing it. But yeah, no, it does seem it's another outlet for people that is helping. So
yeah, definitely. I would say it's a really good hobby, and yeah, if you're doing it for yourself first of all, and you're not so worried about building the fan base, if you do it for that first, then it can be something really enjoyable, I think.
So can we expect another Strictly on the Sofa for 2021?
Oh, I think so.
I feel like this is like an exclusive reveal. I don't know if we've actually publicly said yet. But yes, if there's a Strictly, then yes, I'm sure we will be doing a Strictly on the Sofa.
Even if it's in voice notes, do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
There'll be a version of Strictly on the Sofa out there.
Exactly.
Share the spotlight.
is there any other podcasters or people in your field or kind of other Strictly enthusiasts, we'll say, that you want to give a shout out to, or
any other podcasts you'd recommend?
Yeah.
So I think there's some really good fans and sort of Twitter accounts that if you're into Strictly, it's good to follow.
I really enjoy Help I Sexted My Boss, which is Jordan North's podcast, and that he does with his friend William Hanson. And actually, I was looking at all my favourite podcasts, and they're all two friends talking about, or talking about something they love. And so Help I Sexted My Boss is Jordan North with an etiquette expert, William Hanson, and they just talk about etiquette and what you should do. They're like agony aunts, but one's very posh and one's very not. And then I also really like Two Girls Talk Balls, which is a women's football podcast, but again, two friends just talking about how much they love football. It's just so strange that they're the ones that the ones I like the most.
Oh, I'll have to check them out.
Shagged, Married, Annoyed, which is Chris Ramsey, who was on Strictly, so good segue, and his wife Rosie Ramsey. So if you're looking for
they're hilarious together, aren't they?
I also love Jessie Ware's podcast, Table Manners, and her mum have famous people over for dinner, and they just cook them dinner and they talk about food, and then they talk about all things. So that's really cool. That's really nice. And on the sitcom thing that we're talking about, Office Ladies is just great because we're both huge fans of The Office, and it's two of the actresses from the American Office. They're rewatching all of the episodes and going through them one by one. But you get loads of background behind the scenes on sort of how they, approached the actual acting of it and the filming and everything like that. So that's really, really interesting. Yeah, really good.
Cool. They do sound good, actually.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the one with having them over for dinner and talking to them that way. That's quite an interesting way.
They get some really good people on there as well. Really, really famous people. So, yeah, I would recommend.
Interesting.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's everything. So thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Lovely to talk to you, and everyone should look out for Strictly on the Sofa 2021. Thank you for listening to the I-Endeavour podcast.
Join us next week for another episode. You can find us on YouTube or your favourite podcasting app, or on Instagram.
And if you're a creator or a small business that would like to take part in Series 2, email podcast@idyllicendeavour.com.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to make sure you see all future episodes.